Hi guys, Rangel here, and today we are going to talk about Resnick. She is a lightning element healer and buffer, and I feel like for the players that, like me, have been spending way too much viz over the last couple of months trying to follow every crazy good unit that was released in a row, this is your time to stop, take a break, and save up some viz a little bit. So this is not a unit that is a must chase, I think, for the large majority of players. But what we'll do today is we'll take a look at her kit, how to build her, and which teams she could fit, and then what are the alternatives if you don't get her. So let's begin. On top of being a good healer, Resnick does have a couple really cool tools in her kit. She has Steelheart as a thief, so she can potentially charm your enemies. If you don't run thief, you have access to Arithmetician, which gives you instant cast large AoE heals, so that's also really good. For any type of allies, she can grant physical barriers, which can be really good depending on what you're fighting. And then for lightning units, she's a really good enabler, increasing their survivability and offense in the same buff, so that could be really good. She is a cost 90 unit, which for a support is an issue for any cost-restricted content. I feel like if you're going into limited guild battles or class matches or anything that has a restricted cost, allowing a 90 or 100 cost for your support unit is something that you will very rarely do, so that could be an issue. You want to use your high cost on the unit that's going to cause you to win, not one that prevents you from losing, essentially, is the rationale behind this. Before we look at Resnick herself, let's take a look at her TMR, which is interesting. Honestly, it could see play in some game modes. What this is mostly it's a decent coat that has some defense and spirit, so that's fine. It's going to take up your clothing slot. But the ability is really rather unique. It has a single cast, but for everybody affected, they will gain plus 10% resistance to every attack type. This is something that some tanks do have already. You have this on Mashery's Limit Break, you have this on Celeste's Limit Break, and Charlotte can cast it as well in an AoE, but it's still not extremely common of a buff, and then if you have a lot of resistance already, having that little bit of extra can go a long way. I feel like if you don't have a team that's built around resistances, it's not a huge deal, but in some scenarios, if you're running a Whisper or something like that, you could definitely find some good use out of this. Still though, not worth pulling for, as it won't be a make or break for any teams in the future. Now, let's look at her stats, and don't ask me why. War of the Vision Cock was a little bit wonky, so I have some things in letters, some things in numbers. The agility for Velas appears twice. I make do with what I can, so this is what we'll look at. But she's got slightly less HP than Velas. It is to be expected. She is not a cost 100 unit, so she does lag behind a little bit in terms of stats. She also does with the agility, because he has 67 and she's at 64. Still, Resnick's stats are quite average. She's got decent survivability. She will be able to take 2 hits before going down, which is what you want for a healer, especially because the devout job that she has gives her good passives for increasing her survivability a little bit further. 64 agility is okay. She's not going to lap people a lot, but she won't get lapped either, so it's kind of middle of the ground. And then she's got really high magic at 597, but she won't really be using magical attacks. She'll mostly be healing with it, and she has a lot of healing power up, especially with the new staff that's going to be released alongside her, and that further increases healing power. So expect that high magic to be put to use by just putting everybody to full health whenever she heals. That's really what she's there for. And then in terms of resistances, nothing extraordinary. She is especially weak to Pierce, so that could be an issue if you're fighting an Aranea. If you're fighting somebody like Oberon, she goes down no matter what. He is going to just pop her. So in some matchups that could be scary, but otherwise there's nothing that really jumps to me in terms of her resistances that makes her either very weak or very strong. She's really middle of the pack right there. Now, onto her actual kit. First of all, the passives. I think you will always want the Solid Knowledge passive from the Devout job. It's going to give her 15 defense, 15 spirit, and 15 AoE resistance, making her very, very bulky. You lose out on 20 magic attack. It's not a big deal. She should not be attacking. If she's there trying to finish the enemy team members, you're either in a really good position and she doesn't need to heal, or you've already lost because she's the only member alive in your team. In either case, it won't be making a big difference in my opinion. Then counter abilities, all three of these abilities have a scenario where it could be good. Anti-healing, I've seen Aeon Bond from Yuna just ruin my day by bringing her to full life in between every hit. She could do something similar, but it only has a 20% chance, so it's not as good as Aeon Bond. Damage distribution, hits the enemy a little bit, heals you back a little bit, and that's depending on how much damage you took, so there are scenarios where she would actually do decent damage with that. And then quick action, if she takes damage, she gets extra agility, plays quicker, takes her next turn quicker, manages to maybe heal your allies in time. So all of these I could see some use for, but I think in most cases I would run damage distribution and hope that it procs, just because it has a little bit more damage and it could potentially take down an enemy, saving your other guys. I don't know, I feel like they're all fairly competitive here. Now, onto Resnick's main job. Her first ability is a standard single target heal, so nothing incredible there. And then she gets her lightning, I will call it lightning exclusive buff. She could use it on other people, but it really has power in a lightning team, because this ability on a single ally is going to give them 30 lightning attack, which is quite high, it's going to be a lot of damage, and then 30% chance to resist any incoming debuff. That could be defense down, slash resistance down, agility down, any of these types of something down move. They are going to have 30% chance to ignore them. For Charlotte, that innately has a 50% chance to resist some debuffs, this could be very, very good. It also increases their single target resistance, and meanwhile, Resnick's casting speed is going to increase, decreasing the time necessary for her to cast spells by 30% for 4 turns. So all this together in a single ability is kind of nuts. It is single target, so expect her to aim for your tank first, because having hate, they will also be taking the first buffs from your allied units as well. Then her next ability is an AoE buff instead of a single target one, where she will increase defense and spirit for allies, and then her own healing power is going to go even higher. It's thanks to this buff that I expect her to bring people back to full life basically after every cast, because she'll have so much healing power paired with her high natural magic that basically even if you're a 50 faith unit, she will be healing you for 9 to 10,000 a go. So that is really, really good. Talking about her healing options, she then has a single target healing that after healing you is going to increase your agility, attack, and magic. So it makes your next turn go a little bit faster and it helps your allies hit a little bit harder. I think it's good, it's really nice because modern healers nowadays in War Divisions have abilities that they give on top of their healing, so that is up to date with what a lot of healers do. Then she does have an attack if ever she gets a chance to use it. It is a reflectable attack, so not necessarily great against Celeste, but otherwise a pretty good move that is going to do a 220 mod damage, which is really, really high, and then have a chance to put enemies to sleep. And since she's a mage, high faith, it will be a decent chance to put people to sleep. This is an actual good move, it's just not one that her AI will use naturally very often, because she'll focus on buffing and healing a lot more. And then finally, her 120 ability, if you do take her to there, is a 50% barrier that she will cast on an ally, and it's a physical barrier only, so it only shields against some type of attacks, but it's still 50% is the highest barriers we see in War Division, so it's really good. And then it decreases hate on herself as well, so she doesn't get hit too much. I feel like, overall, really well-rounded kit, lots of things she can do to support, and that is a really good, solid healer overall. Now, let's talk about her limit break, because it really complements her kit well. Currently, in just her main job, Resnick does not have a healing ability that's a large diamond shape, so if you use her limit break, you then have access to that, even if you're not using the Arithmetician sub-job. So that is pretty important. What it does is it heals for a ton. A 310 mod healing is just crazy. It's full HP mod healing, and then it also increases your attack and magic and removes debuffs if ever they were applied. Now, she does decrease the chance that your units were debuffed in the beginning, but I guess if they were applied still, this would potentially remove them. So it's a really good limit break. It's not an offensive one, so again, not a unit that will be winning your fights, but one that is really focused on keeping your guys up. But it's a good thing to have, especially because she doesn't have other accesses to diamond shape healing, except if you're an Arithmetician. Then Devout Subjob, I don't think you'll run this. She has the option of increasing her own AoE and slash resistance, which is good because she has in it AoE resistance, so I guess you could make a build around that, and then it gives her yet another healing spell, but she has enough that she doesn't need those two abilities more than what the other subjobs will give her. So talking about other sub-jobs, first one is Arithmetician. She does have the large diamond shape healing, so not all Arithmeticians get that. It depends on which maximum level ability they get, but she gets that, and then she also has one of the diamond shape attacks. So I guess this would be the main reason to run this, unless you design a build around using CT average or height to disable. It's just Arithmetician is a really good job overall. All these abilities are instant cast, which gives you some leeway. It's overall a really good sub job. I think for Odo you're going to want to run this more often than not, but you could also be running Thief, because as a Thief she has Steelheart, which allows her to charm enemies. And we haven't seen that yet, but she actually has a AI where I have seen her in arena or guild battles on the JP side actually charm enemies. So when her AI doesn't want to go for a buff or for a heal, before starting to do some attacks, she will actually attempt to debuff the enemy team, and that being her only debuff, she'll actually use Steelheart if you turn off, the other Thief moves. So that's a really funny thing. You could see that work in a fight, but chances are if you charm the enemy, they will still be killed by the rest of your team and you're going to break the charm. So I don't expect that to be too game-changing of a move. I think for Odo, you will probably want to run Resnick as an Arithmetician more often than not, and then if you're ever using her in a manual setup, you would have the option to use your healer as a bodyguard for your attackers, or punish enemies for coming too close to you by charming one of them, and then having them turn on their own team. So with that said, really cool healer, has a bunch of good buffs, can potentially charm enemies, that's fun. But I don't think she's extremely different. I feel like we have a lot of other healers already in the game that have a really good supportive sides and some offensive options and are well-rounded characters altogether. Velis is one of them. We see him a lot currently, but his ability to haste your entire team very quickly and then feed AP while healing is just super good. Instead of putting a barrier on his allies, he puts one on himself, but it's still another good move. I think if you own Velis, you don't need Resnick. Even as a supporter for Lightning teams, he is, in my opinion, a little bit better because I value haste very, very highly when I build a team. So no need to pull for her. If you own Aerith, it's a little bit of a similar job. Aerith is going to give you re-raise. Whenever she heals you, she'll increase your defense or increase your spirit, and then she has abilities to give you AP or give you magical barriers. So she has a bunch of stuff she can do that is really similar to what Resnick would provide. So yes, you lose out on the lightning specific unit, but you have other ways to build a team around that. Same thing for Ayaka. She's got really powerful heals, especially with her second mastery ability. The 310 limit break that Resnick has, she essentially has as well. And then she's got the ability to increase defense penetration for physical attackers, which could be interesting. So again, I feel like lots of units are very similar in design to Resnick, and players might already have access to them. If you really like the Devout job and you want to build one that you don't have to pull for, Minwoo is also there. If you are able to clear the Fire Selection quest, you can get her to 120 without spending a single Viz, so that's another unit that's fairly similar in design, although more oriented for Fire teams than for anything else, just like Resnick is oriented for Lightning teams. Now, one thing that's really fun, though, about Resnick is the fact that she will be very hard to kill. Because she had some innate AoE resistance, and you can use Ibarra's Vision card for another 20, she can walk into a field ignoring a third of the effect of AoE attacks. That means she is very less likely than other healers to die from chip damage by just being too close from your other guys, and then she can restore your tank's HP back to full, or your other attacker that got caught in the AoE. So that is really, really good. And then the Devout job giving her extra defense and spirit just makes it really good. In my simple build, I have like 7,500 HP and then 47 defense, 24 spirit. She will not die in a single hit except if it's a very powerful Oberon just going for her with their limit break. And that makes her a lot more reliable than some other healers could be in some scenarios. If you're wondering the rune set that I used for this, I have a defense rune set. You could replace that with a spirit rune set if you wanted to, but you do want one of these two because they give you healing power up, which is very important for Resnick. Then the passives, equip whichever ones you want, but please have a 10% HP in there. It is really, really important. On the offensive side, I just took agility. I feel like for a healer, they need to take turns in between whenever you get damage. If they're too slow, your allies will just be dead before they have a chance to heal. So having as much agility as you can get in there is really, really important. So I went for that. And then again, passives, you have a lot of choice. I think the only one that's a must is 20% magic, and then it really depends how you want to build your unit. So go for whatever you feel like, really. So overall, as I said, I don't really think players should invest into her unless they don't have a healer yet. If you're a starting account and you need a healer to get yourself set up, then she could be a really good one. But otherwise, you probably have alternative if you're an older player. If you have Velis again, you don't pull for her. If you have an Ayaka, you can get to 120. Hey, that's not going to cost you Viz. You could go for that. Is she going to be better for a Lightning team? No, but she'll be close enough that it doesn't make a huge difference in my opinion. So I think the players that should pull for her are really the ones that like her design, like her in the story, and will be playing her because they enjoy her as a unit. And if that's the case, then sure, go all out. You'll have a unit you like. But if you're trying to get something meta to help your account, then no, save. You'll be better off spending on something else. So that's my bit. I am going to skip her myself, and I'll be back soon for some more reviews. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.